Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Louis Shine, host of the InterviewU. Hey, I am so excited. We're actually approaching 100 episodes. I started this podcast as a way to initially connect with my players when I was a college basketball coach. And I did a few episodes to really let my players know from other players that were playing pro what it feels like to be a pro. And so what I did was I can remember this is 2016, 2017, um, during that season, and then the following season, 2017, 2018, where I was at Central State University, and we had a few players that were already playing pro overseas. And so what I did was I got those players on like a video call, and back then it was like on Facebook, and you were able to do like the side by side, which I haven't done in a while. You may still be able to do it. So I got the players on there to just, they were like overseas somewhere, and they would just do an interview with me side by side, and I would really like talk to them about the grind and like uh, what they were going through, like what it took for them to get where they are, and that's how I started this. After I did that a couple times, I was like, what? Let me keep this thing going. And so it wasn't until I um, got further along in my coaching career that I actually really officially started it as a podcast. But I was actually doing it for some time in different interviews um, when I had started it. And so I did a couple interviews. So then when I started coaching at Winthrop University, it kind of came back to me like, you know what, let's start doing this again. So I started reaching out to different people that I knew. I could remember like guys that were at Miami, Ohio with me that, played in the NFL. And I was just still connected to those guys in ways. So I would just ask them to come on and do, episode with me. And so one of the first guys that I got on my podcast was Ryan Robinson. And I think at that time, he was like my first video podcast because I had did a lot of them with just audio. And so he was like my first video where you could see like, side by side screen. And it's interesting because I did that one kind of bootleg, like I did the side by side. I think it might have been on Facebook or Instagram or one of those things. And then I merged the audio and then, cut it and made it all together, So that episode is actually still on my YouTube. So that's kind of how I got started. And then the rest of my episodes, like 90 more episodes, I did all of those audio. And those were just straight audio over the phone. And, or some of them were just me, by myself. But I had a lot of guests on there, from athletes to people that were just progressing in their genre, just looking to get people on to tell their stories so that my listeners can really hear like from other people, like how they made it over, how they became successful, how did they go through the hard times. And so that was the essence of what I was trying to get out of each guest is, you know, what they went through, their life's journey, and then in the end, like what helped them to get where they are. And so I've had some amazing guests, from NFL players to former players, people in music, a lot of sports though, lot of sports because sports is my heart. But as we're approaching the 100th episode, in this episode that we are recording today, I really just wanted to talk about just the journey. Also, just talk about where I am, as a person and how I've progressed during the lifetime of the podcast, and then just let the listeners know who I am, because at this point I'm really starting to reconnect with people, and I'm going on a different journey in terms of the podcast. Not really different, but I'm kicking it into another gear because I'm about to shoot it out big time, um, and really get some major guests on here. And I say major, there'll be some names that you know, there'll be some names you don't know, but they're doing great things, and I love to seek out those kind of people because there's some people that's doing some great things in the world, and a lot of people don't know who they are. And so I love like that lane because that that was me at some point where a lot of people didn't know who I was, and um, so they may classify that type of person as an underdog or whatever the case. But I like to bring light to people who are doing great things, and so I'm going to be doing a lot of that. Moving forward, my podcast. There will be some affiliate deals that you'll see. You'll see me wearing gear and different things like that. Right now, you see me with my PHA shirt on. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. The Professional Hoops Association, which I'm the owner of the Professional Hoops Association. And so we'll talk a little bit about that here soon as well. But yeah, we're going to be going in a great direction with the podcast. It's something that, of course, just starting years ago. I made it all the way to 90 episodes, and then I believe that was kind of when the pandemic happened, somewhere up in that range, And even afterwards, I still did a few more to make the 90. But then there was a time in there that I kind of just cut it because there was just some different things going on in my life, whether that was work or whatever the case. And I just stopped it there. And it wasn't until 2023 where I started back. And when I started back, I experimented with video because I had never really did a on-site podcast video style. I was actually filming for my wife and her podcast, which she's like well over 150, going almost up to like 200 episodes coming up here soon for her. I remember with hers, we did like a big celebration for the 100th episode with her. So I was doing a lot of filming with her on site. So it allowed me to get a lot of practice with just setting the lights up and the video, the cameras and the mics and things of that nature. And so, when I was able in 2023 to do mine, the first video I did, it was amazing just to be able to experience it. And it was because it was mine, my episode for my podcast. And so I was on Twitter one day and I was like, you know what, let me just reach out to some of the people in the Chicagoland area where I'm at. And I was like, you know what, let's reach out to the WNBA team. So I reached out to the Chicago Sky. And I reached out to several coaches, several people in personnel there. And Coach Kabioch, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. But Johan Kabioch, and he reached back out to me. And so I ended up having a podcast interview in person at the Wintrust Arena to interview Coach. And it was so amazing because, if you know me at all, I love, arenas and just behind the scenes and just the whole being in the facility and seeing what's going on. Like, I love that. And I can remember a year, some years ago, I was connected with someone that was connected with, I believe it might have been NBA TV or something like that. And so I actually produced my first show treatment that we pitched to NBA TV. I believe it was called something like Home Court Advantage or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember quite what it was, but because it was my dream to be able to go around to arenas and sports facilities and interview like one of the players that plays for the team there and then do a tour and all of that kind of stuff. And so that stuff is so awesome to me. And so that's something that I always dreamed to do. And may still do some of it, especially with me kicking the podcast in a different direction and growing it. And so that was something that I did. And so being in the Wintrust Arena was really cool because I got a chance to just be in there with the coach and just seeing different things. And then that night we were able to go to the game, and it was just really cool. So, Coach, if you're watching, I appreciate you so much because you may have not known, but just me coming to Interview You, which is the name of my podcast. Well, I named it that, and the Lord gave me that name, Interview You. It just came to me one day, and so when you look at the name and the logo, it looks like it's like a sports type of feel to it, like a college, and then Interview You. There's such a play on it because I'm interviewing you, and I always say thank you for allowing me to interview you. You know what I'm saying? But Interview You can almost be a play like Interview University, Interview You, or you have a college, it'd be like something you. You know what I'm saying? So it has that kind of play, and it's on purpose. So I love that. And so this the whole brand, and so I actually have it's kind of two brands in one. It's the Interview You podcast, and then I also produced. I already have the logo and everything. Interview You Media, which I'm doing some things with as well because I knew that at some point I would be going to facilities, behind the scenes, documentary style, like all of those things are in the works, and so we have that brand already, and so you guys can stay tuned to some of that because there's going to be some awesome things going on with that. And for all of you sports facility lovers and behind the scenes, there may even be some behind the scenes of different sports facilities that are not like at the arenas or at the stadiums, but it may be a sports company that we see the behind the scenes of. So those things get me excited, as you can tell. And so we have some things in the works, so please stay tuned and continue to follow and subscribe, and just check us out, man, because this next leg of this journey, especially as we're going towards our 100th episode, which should be around the turn of September, we're going to try to do something special. So, but as we go into that 100th episode, you'll see some things start to happen, some bigger levels of creativity start to kind of touch down within what we're doing. So very, very excited. And so I did the Chicago Sky episode 2023. And then I ended up doing another video podcast episode where we actually interviewed not the owner, but the general manager of the D1 Maryville, which is D1 training. And so Mike is the guy, my guy there at D1 Training, and he's doing a great job. He's the general manager, and he's doing a great job. And they were actually partners with my pro league this summer for our preview weekend, and so they do an awesome job there. It was just a great collaboration in terms of some of the things we did on social. Wanted to get into some other things as well, but as we continue to grow, and if that partnership is there for coming seasons, we'll do some things as well. So, but that was our my second official video, say third video episode, but second official, because that first one I was kind of trying to figure things out. So you'll see that episode, and then I actually had my last video episode was with Selah Brooks, a phenomenal photo booth company. They were actually a partner of ours for the Professional Hoops Association preview weekend, so they did photos and videos at their photo booth. So we had a great episode with him. He dropped a lot of nuggets, especially on the personal branding and things of that nature. And so check out that episode. But this particular episode, I just wanted to really get on and just catch my audience up with who I am and what I am doing right now. So we'll go into some of that. We have all of our episodes available wherever podcasts you can listen to podcasts. So the InterviewU Podcast, all platforms, as well as my YouTube. You can go there and see the episodes under InterviewU Podcast playlist, and you can catch up on some of those. So pretty much today, just want to let you guys know kind of what I'm doing. So, of course, I have the podcast, and I want to continue that. Podcasting is so amazing because you get a chance to network and meet different people, and you get into their worlds, and you learn about what they're doing. And not only do you give others a platform for other people to know about what they're doing, but one of the things that really I love about it is I get to learn from so many people while I'm interviewing them. It's just like super amazing. And there's just that connection that happens where you connect with that person in a different way. And, some of those people I've interviewed, I've connected with them, and there's friends for life type of situations when connecting with certain people. It opens doors. It just opens a whole different world to you. So I love doing it, and I thank all of my guests that I've had on here thus far. And so, but also I had opportunities that I had the opportunity to have my podcast, the InterviewU Podcast, as the official podcast of the Professional Hoops Association. And so, as we continue the league and we kick things off for the 2026 season, which will start in May, the InterviewU Podcast will continue to be the official podcast of the league. And so during the months of the league, you can expect either myself or someone else on our team that will be interviewing like players, coaches, sponsors, different people that are associated with the league, just so that we can give the fans of the league just another angle of the people that they're watching to play, the people that they're watching coach, and also give the InterviewU fans a taste of what is going on with the league. So it'll go both ways, and so it will continue to be the official podcast of the Professional Hoops Association as well. So I have the podcast going, and then on the other side of things, I have the Professional Hoops Association. So I haven't really talked about the league on my podcast, other than a couple podcasts ago when we talked about when we were hosting Mike with D1 Training. So as you guys know, just through my time of having this podcast, if you paid attention to any social media that I've put on my personal page, I love basketball, and basketball has just been my life, really, in terms of of course, outside of Jesus, basketball has been just something that's been very important in my life. And so my journey with basketball goes back, way back, to growing up in Chicago. I was born in 1980, and then by the 1985, 86, I was kind of I was privy to Michael Jordan. I was young, but I started to understand like who he was, and I was drawing pictures of him in class, and getting Wheaties boxes with him on the front, and I understood how important the Wheaties box was because I had my little case and everything, and my mom was buying me Jordans, and so I understood what was going on with Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? He was like the biggest hit in Chicago, and then you got the Bears winning the Super Bowl in '86, and I remember that being played on the loudspeaker when I was in class on the north side. So, I was getting introduced into the sports thing like really young, and so then I had an opportunity to, I used to go play basketball at the Broadway Armory up north near Rogers Park, and then I had an opportunity to really go with my dad and live with my dad in the summers until I actually went to Cali permanently to live with my dad. But when I was with my dad on both occasions, he would take me to Lakers games and the Clippers games, and I was able to see like Kareem and Magic and Byron Scott, those guys they were like, I loved them. I can remember going to school in Rialto, California. So we used to live in Colton, but I went to school in Rialto. So I believe it was Rialto Elementary is where I went to elementary, third grade. And so it's out by San Bernardino. And so I would go to school, and because, I was already mimicking like the players, and my dad, he had me watching Laker film literally in the third grade and having me study Laker tapes because he used to video all the Laker games. So he was sitting there studying, doing film sessions with me when I was in the third grade. And so I was understanding what Byron Scott and Magic was doing, and Byron having the elevation on his jump shot on the wing, he running the wing. My dad was teaching me all that. So I would go to school, and because I loved Byron Scott so much, I would draw number 4 on a white shirt And then at recess, I would put that shirt on, and I'm running down the court thinking I'm Byron Scott, So it was so amazing. But Dad introduced me to basketball in a more serious way when I was younger, and so came back to live at home in Chicago for the fourth grade and the fifth grade. I moved to Cali to live with my dad permanently, and that's when it really began because I was now fifth grade, sixth grade. I was on basketball teams, experiencing that. I played football and I ran track. uh, so it was just amazing. But I was really around like that Showtime Laker. I was experiencing all of that. And then when I got to the eighth grade, we moved to Ohio, which is where my dad's family is from. And so I moved to Lima, Ohio. And that's when I really, really, really began to put into practice all the things my dad taught me. Because, if you know anything about Lima, it's a basketball city. And so I got there, connected with different people, was on AAU team for the first time. And so it just kind of went from there. So I had a decent high school career, averaged 17.6 points a game, all conference. From there, I went to Miami, Ohio. I was a walk-on at Miami. And so this is kind of where the story of the Professional Hoops Association begins, because this is where kind of like in college is where my story started in terms of like the underdog, the guy that didn't have the stats, although I had the ability. And so in high school was kind of where the preferential treatment like that ended after high school, because I was one of the guys on the team that averaged the most points. I was good. I had game. I had different awards, all kinds of stuff like that. But I didn't have like a full ride scholarship. As a matter of fact, there's a school that the only full ride scholarship that that I received was a offer from a school, and I'm not sure what college, the conference they're in now, but it was a Division II school, a pretty big time Division II school that I received an offer from. I won't say their name, and at the last hour, I can remember literally getting ready to fill out paperwork and fax everything. I was in the process of filling out paperwork to fax it back to the school, because emailing it back and all that, that wasn't a big deal back then. It was like everything was faxed. So I was filling everything out, getting ready to send it in, and literally that same night I was getting ready to fax everything over, I received a call from one of the coaches to let me know that they were rescinding my offer because one of the guys that they offered before that decommitted to go to another school came back around and wanted to recommit to them. So when that happened, they rescinded my offer to take that guy back. And so that was kind of like my first experience to like the political side of basketball. I never had anything like that happen to me, So I was kind of, I wouldn't say I was crushed, but it was like, man, that's just weird. So outside of that, I had a lot of D1, like, they were interested, but nobody really, I can remember getting letters from like, I got a letter from Carolina. And that was more so because I reached out to them. They reached out to me and let me know that they were only looking for 6'6" wings. I'm only 6 foot tall. But I got letters from Stanford. I got letters from Iowa. I got letters from Florida State. Some other schools as well, but those are the ones that were prominent because they were like big time schools, So, believe some D2, interests. Then I got a whole bunch of Division III like interests and offers. But at the time, those D3 offers, they were not like, it was like coaches letting me know, like, we would love to have you here and all kind of stuff. So I can't say, like, they offered me, you know what I mean? But they wanted me at their school. But I had a 3.8 GPA. And so, like, I could have went to any school I wanted to for academics. But it came down to, like, what you have to pay, some of the D3 schools not offering full ride athletic scholarships, that whole thing. So I ended up at Miami, Ohio, because Miami pretty much gave me a full ride academically, and it was a D1. And so, I guess one of the things I could change back, from back then is if I could go back, I probably would have went to like a lower level school because going to Miami, I'm grateful that I went for sure, but I was a walk on, and I didn't get a chance to play a lot of minutes. Although I made the team, I played in like 8 games, I believe, maybe less, but it was over that 5 mark. And you know, I scored one bucket. I had one bucket in college, as a walk on. Although I played several minutes, over the span of a few games. I didn't get a chance to really like play my game, score points because I was a walk on. And at the time, like, it was hard for a walk on to get minutes, and especially on my team. I had a lot of good players on my team, although I feel like I could have, you know, uh, gotten more minutes. It just didn't happen like that. And so, after that first year that I walked on, I had an opportunity to transfer because there were still other schools that wanted me. But there was actually a really big time D3 school that wanted me. But by the time me and my dad went through like what's going to transfer as far as credits and what did not, it was just like I would have lost like my whole year. And so I was like, you know what, let me just stay here and I'll just walk on the team again because at the time they didn't like promise like a walk on that he can be on the team for the next year. And so I went into my second and third year, going back to walk on tryouts, did really well. But for some reason, I believe it was like Title IX that happened. And so they cut sports, they cut men's sports. And so instead of the men's team carrying 15, they ended up carrying 13 players, which they had 13 scholarship players. So that means they were not going to carry any walk-ons. So they still had walk-on tryouts, and I still went and did really well, but they didn't pick anybody up. And so by the time my senior year came, I was just like, man, like this is like my third year trying to get back on the team, And so at that time, I was going through tryouts, pretty much was on the team at that point, and it was, I felt like it was about to be official. They started letting me be a part of lifts and everything. And so there was a night that I went to church, and make the long story short, because it can be a very long story. Um, there was a message that was being taught that night. And when I left that message, left church that night, it was one of the guys that was on the team. He was with me. And pretty much the Lord spoke to me that night and was like, um, he doesn't want me to be on the team because it was a couple of things. It was either me being on the team or it was me doing campus ministry. I couldn't do both because of if I play basketball, then at the time I was heavy in campus ministry in terms of taking, athletes and players, of even different sports, football players to church and a lot of just students. And we would take like sometimes in the upwards of 30 students on a Sunday morning to church. But a lot of times, there was either practices or games happening at the same time. And so it's like the Lord was like, I want you to do this. And so I can remember going into Coach Cole's office and just letting them know that, the Lord is telling me to do this. And so I just let him know that I couldn't be on the team my senior year. And so we sat there and we talked and all of that. I believe we even cried a little bit, but he understood. And so that was like I would say my next to last time trying to be on the team, because then after that I came back like my first year of grad school and I wanted to do it again. And so at that time they didn't take any more walk-ons, and I think they picked up somebody later on, but that's kind of when I knew that was like it. It was like, well, I've tried like 3 different times in college to do it. And I believe that one time the Lord had me not do it because there was a lot of stuff going on in campus ministry. There were a lot of students getting saved, and it was just awesome. And so I wouldn't trade that decision for anything. I'm glad I did that. And so then here comes after college, and it was just like, hey, I still have this basketball itch. And I knew I could play. That was no thing. But just to know that I didn't have like a college resume with 4 years of 10 points and 8 assists or whatever the case as a point guard. I didn't have any of that. I had 1 year as a walk on with about 7 or 8 games or whatever it might have been and 2 points. So, but I knew I had game. Like I knew I could play. I mean, I spent my time in college playing with the team and playing with the players. Like I knew I had game. I could play with them. It was nothing. So that summer after college in 2004, after grad school, I spent my time training and getting ready to play pro, and I started going to these workouts and these tryouts and working out and trying out for every team and every scout that I could because I knew I had game, and I did really well that summer. But it came down to the end of the summer, and I hadn't gotten any traction on any teams or getting picked up anywhere. And so there was a couple things that happened. I actually got an opportunity to go to this workout in Salt Lake City where this team liked me there, minor league team. And so they ended up flying me back in, and I was able to participate in what they call it. It was like a pre-training camp. And so I did really well. I tested out on a lot of tests. I was the highest vertical leap, fastest shuttle run, like all those kind of things I did really well in. Did really well in practice as well. And it came down to it to where they ended up cutting me because they had some other guys where they had their investments in, and they said I did really well, but they had their investments in a few other guys. And so it was again the political side of it where I was like, man, there's more to it than just your basketball ability when it comes to the professional ranks. You got to be good with your skills, but sometimes there's some other things that's going on. And so I was like, man, but I knew the Lord had his hand on me. And so then I went back home. I was a little ashamed to go back home because when I went to that team, they had me in the paper and big write-up, all kinds of stuff. And it was just like, man, I'm going back home. I just got cut. You know what I'm saying? So I ended up staying in Dayton, Ohio. I didn't go back to Lima because I was a little ashamed, And so I stayed down there and stayed with my uncle, and I worked out to stay ready. I had like a tryout with Athletes in Action and Xenia because they used to do the touring teams with the colleges, So didn't make that. And so then after that, I was like, man, so I ended up getting a call from a coach that was at an overseas workout that I worked out at. And he liked my game. He liked what I did there and what I displayed. And that's how I got my pro opportunity for that first year and the only year that I played pro. And that's how I got my contract because they remember seeing me somewhere else. And so I can remember that fall getting ready, and then ended up going out to Denver, Colorado, played with a team there. That team ended up getting bought out. So I ended up going to another team in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and finished my year that year. Did pretty decent. And I was in the All-Star weekend for the three-point and the dunk contest because that was my thing. I was 6-foot point guard, but could jump out the gym. So that was like my journey. But like what brought this about was the fact that, I was that player that was the underdog player, didn't have much ability. I mean, I had a lot of ability, but I didn't have the stats and things to go with my ability because I was a walk-on in college. But someone gave me an opportunity, and they looked at me for the ability I had and not the stats that I didn't get, And so that's what opened the door for me. And so I see a lot of players today that, man, they have ability, they may have college stats or college film, but maybe it's not satisfactory to where an agent might look at them or a team might look at them. Maybe they have that, but something happened to where they had to take a year off to go work, or maybe they even had a kid and they couldn't, continue overseas. They had to come home or something like that. And those situations for me warm my heart because I was that guy where I had a situation happen, a couple situations happen. And so but someone still gave me a chance. And so when I see those guys that have those situations, I can see those guys a mile away because I was that guy and someone helped me. And so my heart goes out to guys that are in situations, guys that may be playing at lower levels that maybe somebody overseas are not looking at them because they're not D1. Or maybe they were D1, but they didn't get the stats. So now they're a D1 player coming out of college, but nobody's checking for them because they don't have the stats. And so they need a place to play so they can get something on a professional level, a credible professional level, um, so that they can get somewhere. And so that's the story behind this. Had an opportunity to be a part of owning a pro team, and for 3 years, and I helped a lot of guys get to their next level, and some of those guys are playing now. And so that's the story behind this. In 2020, finishing playing college basketball and being able to move back to the Chicagoland area, which is my home, and the desire for owning a pro team again was very alive in me still. But then the pandemic happened, and it pretty much shut everything down. So I stopped thinking about it. I had some people reach out, some different leagues reach out and ask me, did I want to have a team in their league? But during the pandemic, it was tough because you got to have a really big budget just set aside to come in a bubble situation, and you don't have people gathering, you don't have fans, and that revenue that comes with that, and all of those things, you don't have that. So I just declined that. But then as things began to open back up, 2022, my mind got to going, and I'm like, man, I would really love to have a team again. That was like one of my favorite times in my life, where I just felt like I was in my zone of life, where I was doing what I was supposed to be doing and being able to touch lives like just at liberty, and not having to wait on anyone else. That was amazing. And so I just kind of started out on the journey, and I started just looking around like, man, like, where would I have a team? And what league can I have a team in? Like, all those questions, just asking them. And then I couldn't really find a league that I felt like fit what I was trying to do, just in communities and just for players and things of that nature. And so one day I was just like, why don't I start my own league? It just came to me. It's like, okay, so how would I do that? And so I knew the experience that I had in the past, and I was like, you know what, let's just kind of start going down that trail. So I started looking, where would I have the teams? And I started looking in cities just 2.5 hours away, and within an hour, from where I lived, and all those kind of things. And I ended up settling on, some cities that were further. But then as I got more into the process, I started finding cities that were closer. And it was like, man, like, this is, and the Lord was just like leading the process. And so I started looking, and I was like, you know what, Northwest Indiana, boom, like, it's the Chicagoland area, but it's its own thing, Northwest Indiana, the region. And so, and it's where I live. And it's like, wow, let's do this. So fast forward, we just finished a couple weeks ago our preview weekend, where we pretty much had 4 teams, on 2 different nights, and we represented what the league will look like in 2026. And we played a couple games. The games were amazing. I'll actually drop the links to the broadcast down below in the description, so you guys can check it out, as well as the website, and just check out what we've done. And so far, we're, this is our first time out in the community having this preview weekend. We kicked it off on a Thursday night with a big celebration, kickoff, and I just posted that video before this video, so you can check out some of the words and the different things that were said, and some of the things I shared there. I'll put that down here as well. And then we had a Friday and Saturday, the 18th and 19th of July, where we actually had a amazing weekend of 2 games. Had a great time, and I believe it was a great showing. And so now what we're doing is we're taking that, packaging that up, and now we're beginning to just shop the league around in terms of just talking with sponsors and investors and just different people that we believe that can be a part of help making this very successful. And so Our plan is to kick off in May of 2026 with our 4 teams, maybe 6 teams, depending on what goes down in these next 10 months. Um, and we'll be right here in Northwest Indiana, and we'll release our teams and just get things going. End of May through the end of July, and then the first weekend of August, we'll have our playoff weekend. We'll go 10 weeks. That's the plan right now in terms of just how long the games will go, and yeah, it's going to be amazing. So that's just a snippet and the story behind the Professional Hoops Association and what we're doing. And just wanted to talk a little bit about that today on the podcast so you can know not only the stuff that I talked about before in terms of me and what I've done and why I started the podcast and where the podcast is going, but I also want to let you know a little bit about what I am doing present time today. And of course, the InterviewU Podcast, but I'm also the owner of the Professional Hoops Association. And I hope you enjoyed the story that I just told, just some background behind it and what it's about. And so I'm very excited, also very excited to stay connected with you guys, just viewing this and listening. So we'd love to hear more about you and who you are, and just connect with you guys that are out there listening. So please, as you watch this and as you listen to this, leave a comment below. Let us know who you are and what you're doing, or even how you are enjoying the podcast and just some of the things you like to see, with the podcast, because I love to connect with the people that are listening, the people that are watching, and just to see what your thoughts are and what parts of this you enjoy and things of that nature. So please connect with us, leave a comment below, and we will respond to you. But hope you guys enjoyed this. This is a labor of love that has finally come to fruition. And so very excited to continue to share about this as we journey down this road with the professional league. I definitely will be talking about it on the podcast, and you may see some different advertisements and some screens about what's going on with it, or where you can visit to see what's going on with it. So, but I'm excited. I appreciate you guys just taking time to listen to what I've talked about today. I hope that it intrigued you. Hope that it was entertaining for you. If you want to know more, please reach out, connect, leave a comment, and I will definitely get back to you and talk to you a little bit about it, talk to you a little more about it. You can visit for more information, phahoops.com. That's phahoops.com to learn more about the league. Also, we are opening the podcast up to sponsors. If you are looking to get your brand out there, to let more people know about what you're doing, please contact us. The information to contact us is down below, and we'll get back with you. We'd love for you to sponsor a segment. We'd love for you to even be a guest if you have a sports brand or a brand that's exciting that you would love to get out there more. We are opening up to guests. So please leave your information below or contact us at the information below so that we can get back in touch with you. But we have spots open for sponsors, also affiliates. If you have a brand or product you're looking to get out there, please contact us at the information below, and we'll get back to you. We'd love to be a partner with you. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed this InterviewU segment and what I talked about in terms of the PHA, the Professional Hoops Association. So hope you guys enjoyed it. But until next time, I would say thanks for allowing me to interview you, but I actually interviewed myself today. So thank you guys for tuning in to InterviewU. And until next time, we will see you on the next episode.